All right. Good evening, everyone. So before starting the discussion on this, I'll quite summarize what has happened at the first day of Global Soccer Conclave. So it's been quite a day at the GSC, starting with the plenary session to grasp the overall football situation, where the game is heading up, and where are the current challenges open up. And over the next sessions, we are trying to find solutions and roadmaps. So we have been taken through sessions like 5G innovation, where like how technology can innovate and evolve the football business performance in operations. Then we have a brief session on event management, how pandemic has affected, and also provided opportunities to enhance like few things, for example, like fan engagement and digital strategies with the clubs and associations and organizations. Apart from that, we also immersed in fan engagement and we try to pick up something in freestyle football, esports, and futsal. This is on the business side. Apart from it, from the performance side, we have had some brilliant solutions in sports tech and athlete management, technology for performance enhancement, new trends in injury management, especially when like certain experts explained how from sidelines they're able to solve a lot of issues, even addressing to the extent of a cardiac arrest. So some brilliant suggestions were on nutrition as well. And that's it. So here we are at the business end of day one, and a panel where I can't really wait to host and discuss because we are literally at the congress of our esteemed guests who literally run the football show of Indian football clubs. So where do I start? I'm here to introduce the panelists. So first one up, Aditya Datta as Vice President of Commercial Operations at FC Goa. So he has over 20 years of experience in leveraging the business of football through his leadership and business. Hi Aditya, welcome.
Hi Yogesh, thank you for having us.
Yes, great. Next up is Anuj Gupta, who is the president of Sudeva FC. He has been forefront of taking Delhi football to the next level. He's been making some significant steps in creating strong impact in the local football system by working with many stakeholders. Hi Anuj.
Hi Yogeraj. Yeah, thanks.
Great to have you here as well. Next up, Ashish is a sports strategist, operational expert, and sports technology evangelist. So he has been associated with many clubs in India as well as sports tech companies. He's previously worked with Delhi Dynamos, but also Chennai FC. So he's currently CEO at MPL Sports Foundation. Welcome, Ashish.
Thank you. Thank you for
Next
having
we
me.
have is Mandar Tawane, who's CEO of GSW Bangalore Football Club Private Limited. He was previously also the team manager for international football team with AFF for 2 years from 2010 to 2012. Thank you, Mandar.
Thank you,
Next up is Mukul Chaudhary, who's the CEO of Jamshedpur FC, Thread Miners, and Chief of Sports Excellence at Tata Steel. So looking forward to hearing more from Tata Football as well. So amazing. It's been a great evening. So let's all kick over to the discussion. So I'm here like to start with actually the challenges, and rather later we'll proceed towards opportunities and towards businesses. So let's get on with the challenges. And first up to Ashish. You are someone who had first-hand experience of business challenges faced by football clubs, which eventually forced the club to relocate from Delhi to Odisha. Take us through what were the key challenges in Delhi and process that followed to relocate the club.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, very interesting question and experience. Once again, happy to be here and thanks for having me. So, specific to having business, sports business in Delhi, we realized the challenges. While Delhi has a lot of positives in terms of a macro as a city, the largest economy, a lot of corporates, a lot of wealth. Economy is probably the biggest in terms of India. We soon realized that running a football club, at the ISL level, we were facing some serious challenges. And I think the biggest one was to do with building a strong community, of fans. And one of the reasons where people from all over the country live in Delhi, probably actually from all over the world, we were not, for whatever reason, not able to build a very sticky fan base. There was a very small and vocal fan base, but we couldn't expand beyond that for reasons. The city also had a lot of other entertainment things to offer. So it was a struggle. I mean, we did a lot of things, reached out to schools, colleges, grassroots programs, as we call it, tried to work with the governments, the federation, the state governments, sports authority. But, we just were not able to move the needle on the community part. The other, of course, there were other challenges in terms of the expenses were quite high. I think the franchise fees were one of the highest in the league. I remember when I joined, the loss was, close to 50 crores a year. We brought it down to 30 crores by, reducing expenses, increasing our revenues, etc. But beyond that, it was becoming a big challenge. And given all these factors, of course, it affected our ability to drive revenue. People were not, it's a 65,000 seater stadium, Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium. So even if you filled 1/3, it looked kind of empty. And so lack of that, and we winter evenings in Delhi, a logistical issue for especially women and children to come and enjoy a game. We used to, on the same day of matches, by the way, have food festivals in the Nehru Stadium, and those used to be packed with families. And one of our recommendations to the league was to, in winter, have a 3 p.m. kickoff or a 4 p.m. kickoff in Delhi, which of course, for whatever reason, that didn't work out. But so these were kind of row after row of challenges. It finally came down to the owner saying that a 30 crore kind of a loss year on year is something not sustainable as a business. Can you bring it down to about 7 crores over 3 years? And my co-panelists may remember where this 7 crore number came from. One of our CEOs, who's not on the panel, went about saying that he's got his loss to about 7 crores, and that became like the benchmark. And there was no way we could, I could even show it on paper.
So see some gentle smiles.
Yeah. Right. So moving on, we spoke to the league, and they were kind enough to say, you can explore an option of relocating. And our owners who had come in from outside India, looking at Delhi as a base, for them this was a very, very tough situation. But finally, as a business call, they had to take it with a lot of heartburn. So we looked at 3 places. In addition to Odisha, we looked at Hyderabad, we looked at Ahmedabad, did a lot of studies, looked at various factors such as infrastructure, logistics, the demographics, the business community, the fan base, etc., etc. And all of them have something or the other to offer. And now we have a team in Hyderabad already in ISL, right? So finally we chose Odisha because the overall so-called say the package that we were able to kind of get, and obviously hats off to the government of Odisha in terms of taking the lead. The conversations we had in terms of what they could offer to us, not only as infra and monetary support, but also in terms of getting the Odisha FC name spread in the state, and how to fill the stadium, all that. So they were literally a partners we could feel. So we finally decided on that. So we relocated, which in itself is a large conversation. But in short, we relocated from Delhi to Odisha via Pune. Mandar will remember. And we finally ended up there. And I think in the first year, the loss went down to about 17 crores. So we already saw the impact of moving, and now I'm sure the club will see much better days. So that's been the journey.
Yeah. Wow, thanks, Ashish. I mean, it was really nice to hear from you, but actually I understand it wouldn't have been so nice facing all the challenges. But anyways, like, it has been a brilliant decision, I suppose, because we see the effect it has on the club right now, and especially the way the state is supporting different sports. We've seen some really highs in hockey as well. So kudos to your decision. Somebody is really getting benefit out of it. Thanks. But we also understand it's not easy running football clubs. Especially when you understand that today's sport is a business and football is a business. It's a bad word, money, but that's where it's all about. And definitely a lot of challenges. And that is exactly where I'm coming. It's already difficult to run football clubs, but how about pandemic? So here I am to Aditya. So can you explain, like, what are the different strategies you have tried to pull it commercially when it comes to your club during the pandemic?
So I think, first, thanks for having me. The pandemic has not been, good for everyone. I'm going to break it into 2. The first part of the pandemic, obviously all of us were not know how it's going to go and where it's going to move. Brands were also waiting and watching. So I think some of the challenges were, how do we move forward? Is the league going to happen? If the league happens, there's going to be closed door. But I think in the first part of the pandemic, it was more about, talking to our existing brands and seeing how, they are faring and what their thought process is, and how we as partners can, help them out, and in turn, obviously, they come on board, to sponsor. I think that was the first strategy that we used, and it was very successful, because it was, I think, everyone was going through the same thing. Although we saw a dip in revenue, almost about 40%, but I think at least most of the brands came on board, to show support to it, which is very very good, I think, for football. The second part of the pandemic has given us a little bit more time to think through how we can strategize to make sure that we can add more value to our sponsors. And we as a club looked at it more from what kind of assets we've already built, how we can include those into a package that would then add value to a sponsor. And it ranged from our grassroots program to our fan engagement to to any other things that we've built over the years, and it's running successfully. We have a very good online soccer school which we built during the pandemic, which saw within 3 months a good uptake. So how we can package all these things and bring it out to the sponsors. The second strategy was more in terms of sales. How do you now which are the brands that are spending, how are they spending it? Is it a good quarter for them? What are the categories? We saw that internet companies, like the EduTech, for instance, are coming out and spending a lot more. Reaching out to those brands, first as compared to only traditional brands. So that's been one of our strategies, moving forward. Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Aditya. Thanks for being pretty transparent with even the values. And I hopefully the sales strategy which you explained in terms of reaching out to the digital partners will be a fruit in the future. So this is one thing where we try to establish new strategies. However, there is another area of actually cutting down the cost. And this is the question to Mandar. So contribution and performance metrics of Bengaluru FC speaks volumes about how structured the football development, monetization and sustained performance is at Bengaluru FC. However, no club is free from pandemic. Amidst COVID, what are the major cost-cutting areas were adopted at your club to maintain good financial health?
I think, as Ashish also very rightly put in the beginning, that the financial health of all the clubs is not something which we all are proud of. We are all trying to bring the losses down. So it's always been a challenging part, even prior to the pandemic, and the pandemic has only added a lot of other things where we had to innovate and probably bring our best to ensure that these cost cuttings are done, but at the same time not compromising on the quality. So what couple of things that probably we as a JSW group were able to do is, because of we have got allied other teams also. So we have tried to use this year the formula where we are trying to have shared resources in terms of the manpower, where we have got people earlier who are working for Bengaluru FC, now are parallelly working with the IIS or the Olympic sports program or the Kabaddi team. Also, what we have tried to do is with the setup and the infrastructure that we have at Bellary at the Inspire Institute of Sports, we've got our team based there now rather in Bangalore, where we don't have to incur all the expenses that in Bangalore. So there are certain innovative ways where we are trying to do it. But at the same time, we have to also ensure that the quality is maintained right across all the verticals, whether it's the first team or the soccer schools or the academy, etc. Also, like what Aditya mentioned, also was part of the soccer schools, where because of the pandemic, it has hurt us the most, where we are not able to be outdoors with the children. So I think on the web programs where we are able to conduct such kind of courses has helped us not only with the current and existing boys and girls that were there in the program, but we were able to reach out to people who are outside of Bangalore or even outside of India who were able to connect on such programs. So that has also helped us. Another thing which I feel is I'm pretty sure Mukul and Aditya will also agree, is the fact that the Reliance Foundation is now supporting the clubs which have been doing the grassroots and the youth development programs properly. And this relief is a relief for clubs which are already having a strong grassroots and youth development programs. Maybe it may not be so to the other clubs which are not doing it, because then they use this money to probably do it. But for us, which are doing these things, it helps us when this grant is given by Reliance Foundation. So I think this was something which is added to us a little bit more in terms of maybe small drops, but at least it's added to that this season for sure. So I think these are the various ways in which we have tried to save the cost, per se, and ensure that we can cushion the effect of the pandemic.
Yeah, thanks, Mandar. Like you neatly touched upon how to bring down the losses. I think the sharing of the resources was quite innovative. And you not only touched upon Bengaluru FC, but you also touched upon other JSW companies in terms of the Kabaddi team as well as the Inspire Institute of Academy. Really nice. Yeah, both have literally touched upon grassroots and youth development. So here I am to Mukul. Mukul, sports has always been an integral part of Tata Steel's corporate philosophy. Along with various other sports, football has always been a major component in that. Can you please tell us how important grassroots and youth development is, and what in Tata Steels are you doing about it?
So grassroots is a very important. Grassroots and youth development has always been part of our development programs, right from 3 decades now. I think Tata Football Academy was one of the pioneering academic initiatives in India. But more importantly, we were consistent even when we were not part of the ISL. The ISL just happened to us 3 years back. But otherwise, we had a soccer program going on, and which was there, been in existence for almost more than 30 years, so to say, where we had this Kolan football program which is being run. So just to share with you, there's this local league which runs, which is the GSA, which is almost is going to celebrate 75 years, which is a football league which has been run in Jamshedpur, which is not known to many. Apart from that, we have a regular annual program for football, which has been running for ages, which is also having close to 30,000 participation annually when we conduct that tournament. Now, this is more from our in the tribal belts and stuff, but we have always been there. Coming back to grassroots, yes, it's a most important piece. Trust me, I keep saying this before. I've said this before, but a 6-year-old in India and a 6-year-old in Brazil or UK is not very different. What happens in his life between the 6 and 16 is what matters. And we have not been doing much in that area. And that's where I think we need to work upon, particularly when these boys are in schools and you don't give them the right kind of fundamental education, so to say, as far as football is concerned. And that's where we lag behind. Players usually get their formal training only after 16 or 18. And that's sometimes is a little too late. Sometimes it's always too late. And unfortunate part is this is where we need to work. We started a lot of work in this area. We started when we launched this club and we knew that we're getting into this commercially. We thought it was very much important that we engage at the grassroots level, not purely from training football alone, but it's also about reaching out to masses and seeing to that maximum people are engaged in this game, so that you have that fan base being created and as you go along. And we manage it pretty well. We currently run close to 9 football schools, which are run completely by the soccer schools. Plus, we have Tata's Foundation, which runs 25 other programs, which we are part of, which is being run by GSC. So that way, we are touching close to 3,000 kids who are being trained on a regular basis, 5 days a week. So that's something that we are very proud of that we have been doing. But having said that, we feel that it's not enough, because there's a good amount of work that needs to be done in coach education, because while we can reach out to many more, you don't have sufficient number of coaches. So we started this program some 3 years back, and we have managed to create grassroots leaders. We started with the help of AIF, we started a D license program, a C license program, because this belt is relatively not so educated, and you have a lot of rural population here. So getting them, holding their hand, taking them along, and developing coaches is something that we thought was very, very essential. We managed that very well so far. We have close to 200 odd numbers below our belt as far as coaches development is concerned in last 2 years, which is helping us sustain our programs, which we are running in various parts of the state. So that's what we are doing in grassroots. And like Mandar and Aditya had mentioned, online was the only way to reach out during this pandemic, and we managed to connect with the audience. We kept them warm. We kept on connecting regularly, had some regular programs which were more on the educational side, to see to it that the engagement is on through this period. So yeah, that's what we are doing in grassroots.
Thank you, Mukul. I mean, like, it's nice to know that you have a lot of local leagues as well as annual leagues. It's nice to know that so many participations, you have football schools. The thing I liked it how you're making it appeal to the local masses and not so city-based population, it's rural-based population. You're still working on upliftment. It's really nice, and hopefully you can continue this good thing. And there was a question from an attendee that what coaches education needs to be done at the state level. Yes, the state federations is working with the Indian Federation to organize football coaching education, as well as clubs like GSC is starting their own coaching programs to develop grassroots and youth coaches. So that's amazing, Mukul. Yes, on this perspective, I would like to discuss with Anush. Anush, what are the serious challenges in providing competitive game time for youth footballers? Yes, Mukul touched upon this point where the actual difference is when it starts from 6 to 16, where like we really struggle to get our people ahead than the ones in Europe or South America. So exactly, what are the serious challenges for the youth, especially when it comes to game time in India?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Yograj, for the question. I think as Mukul was saying that about grassroots development, it is. I mean, we all. I think we've seen for the last 40 years that, or maybe more, that kids from any age, they are either learning on their own, or there are certain coaches who are there who have played for India, and they are literally doing a social work of running their own academies. But end of the day, if the kid is not able to get those matches, whether they're competitive matches or the friendlies, but there is a kind of a season which goes on, I think what we are not building is a match temperament. And that match temperament makes a difference once you turn 16, 17, because that's the time when analytical part of football comes into play. And that's where I think a lot of our footballers have problems as they grow older. So I think one of the biggest challenges is how to give those match games minutes. And again, I come from Delhi, where definitely it's not a sporting city. It's the capital of the country where everything is politically driven. For that, obviously, getting money to organize any form of tournaments league is where I think we face problems. In the sense that there are a lot of people who talk a lot. They say that this is not happening, this is not happening. But when we go and ask for money, where we give them a plan, I think sometimes what happens is that if the cost is X, we do a 10X. Or when I say we, I mean to say generally, you give cost plus that extra is so much that it's not viable for any sponsor to come in. Because end of the day, the passion which you find in Delhi is about more about other activities, not football based. However, the community which plays football in Delhi are the ones who are not coming from that upper middle class or upper class. They're coming from middle or lower middle class. So and they don't have that money, but they have the passion. So for instance, I'm in football Delhi. So most of the people are working for free, and they've been doing it for n number of years. So the major hurdle is about raising funds to do tournaments. But let me tell you, there are so many academies now in Delhi NCR. It's unbelievable. From 5 years to for 18 years, and many academies, and they're looking to have tournaments. And I think what pandemic has done is that it has raised the demand. It has raised the hunger even more. So I think now, as a whole, nobody cares to that extent that what will be the bigger impact of the pandemic if something happens. So now I think there'll be a much more smaller tournaments happening, which also is important. But I personally feel that longer leagues are important. From under 6, under 8, under 10, under 12, under 14, just like a senior level, we have a season. I think it's very important for bigger groups to start having seasons for younger age categories. Because once you are under 6 and you know that you have 4 months of league happening, you have a team, you have a logo, you have a branding, you might be a hero if you get the man of the match. So he starts believing in himself. For a parent, if he or she starts looking at his child being a hero, even in the social media, then they would also promote him to play football. So now what happens is that we are not looking for, we look at heroes when they play for a national team. But I want that those heroes should come from under 6, under 8, because that's the time they would start building a small community fan base. Who says that an under 10 cannot have a fan? It could be a fan of a group of families. Just like, there used to be a couple of leagues going on, but lately it has stopped. But I think going forward, like in terms of my approach, I would be approaching Delhi as a place with a lot of academies, and we would be pushing to having at least 4 to 6 months of league for all age categories, which will be part of a season. Slowly, we will try to add relegation and promotion at a grassroots leagues. And I think that would definitely make it a big difference in a longer run. But yeah, again, it's a 10-year gestation, because 6 to 16, that's the time. You need to give them at least 8 to 10,000 hours of training and match. About 30 matches a year. So I think by the time you turn 16, if you have played 300 matches, I think then we are ready to have that new generation of players who exactly know what they have to do in their position.
Yes, Anuj. Listening to you, I can understand the pain you have in terms of developing this youth. We clearly understand the need to have longer leagues, more established leagues for all the age groups, like you mentioned. But also, I think like the people who are looking at making it at the executive level in football probably look at it very seriously. How can we make the systems more attractive for the corporates to probably invest in youth and grassroots football in terms of more tournaments? How can we make it more attractive for us to have more tournaments? I think that should be the approach for even budding executives to come into the sport. It's a follow-up question, Anuj. Yes, you have explained about how the youth model is shaping up, but in near future, can you actually see that this model can be utilized for better business in terms of whether the youth players can be developed and sold, or like transferred to foreign clubs for actual good amount of money?
Well, I think that I think we still have time for that, but we cannot work on sustainability by having only those options of selling players at a youth level to bigger clubs. That is one form of revenue, but I think the major revenue comes when you have the pay and play model. Second, you need to have if the academy boys start becoming professional, then definitely they will start getting training compensation, which definitely AFF has done well, and definitely they should make it more forceful for clubs to give TCs to all the academies who have been part of the the AIFF ecosystem. Third, definitely bigger clubs, whether it's the second division or I League or ISL, they should have multiple tie-ups with grassroots academies, so that they also have a full pathway till the end, where if a bigger club likes any of those players from the youth academies, they would be giving an X amount to them. So that also adds as a revenue model, plus their academy also grows at a social media level, at a development level, because end of the day, the youth academies, they are not looking for a big money. What they're looking is that if they are able to fund the staff, generally, they're able to get some funding for footballs, equipment, jerseys. Those are easy. But I think taking care of the salaries, I think that is the amount which, if they're able to fund through these options, I think then you will see a lot more healthier academies who would stay longer, and they will not disappear after a couple of years.
Wow, great. It's nice to that you've touched upon how to maintain the health of academies. And of late, I've seen the news that you have tied up with Hindustan FC in Delhi, which is really nice. You actually walking the talk. Really nice to see that, Anuj. Yes, we have explored like on youth models. We have explained like what are the challenges for business. Let's look at opportunities. The question is to Mandar again. Mandar, can you please let us know like what role actually the international collaborations play in terms of business development?
No, I think first of all, to have an international club, I think the approach has to be you should have the right partners for that. Which club is the right partner for you is very, very important. What I mean by right partner is at the same time when you're partnering a club, their interest is to grow in the region or to grow in the Indian market. But at the same time, if they have to ensure that they are also looking at the interest of us as clubs growing. So when you have such kind of a partnership, then only it will be sustainable in terms of even commercial or otherwise also. Because normally even we have a partnership with Rangers Football Club from Scotland, and prior to that we were in talks with many of the clubs in Europe amongst the top 4 nations for a possible partnership, but those partnerships were based on certain services that you buy from there, where you're investing money to buy their services. So I think such kind of partnership, I don't think bring value in terms of what you want to achieve commercially, or also in terms of the development is concerned. There is another model which you can look at, is where a certain foreign club wants to come and invest in your club. I think that is where you get the investment easily out, where you're buying selling out certain stakes of your club to a foreign club, which obviously then brings commercial value to it. But when you are partnering, if there is no ownership or buying or selling of in between a partner club, then the approach should be a 360 degrees approach, where you are not just looking at the first team, but at various aspects of a football club, whether it's the academy, whether it's the grassroots, whether it's technology driven, etc. So I think if there is a 360 degree approach to such kind of a partnership, then over a period of time you can build on it, and which later can translate into certain commercial benefits, if you can say so. A couple of things that we have benefited from Rangers was from the was basically there are certain software related things that are being done at the academy and the grassroots level, or even at the senior level, where performance is judged through these softwares. We've had a tie-up with the vendor as a joint partner clubs, and that has helped us get us a good deal in terms of the value that was bringing. Also, we were, since the past 2 years, because of the pandemic, in the pre-seasons we were not able to do it, but we were scheduled to play a game with Rangers at the Ibrox, and this was supposed to be a ticketed game. So the revenue that was supposed to come from the ticketing revenue was going to be shared with the clubs. You're again looking at some live television for this game. So there was areas where we were trying to monetize this partnership, and obviously we will be in future also. And over a period of 2 years that we have had this partnership, we obviously had one agreement which spelled out a few things, but with a couple of years of interaction, the trust has grown so much that we are doing certain things which are not even contracted or documented. So if such kind of relationship can be built between clubs, then I think in the longer run it will help us in terms of the commercial values, also in terms of the development.
Okay, it's such a pity that you're lost on the actual revenue of shared revenue with Rangers. Hopefully, in the times to come, you can literally realize it. Aditya, it would be great if you can touch upon your international collaboration with a European club. Is it something like a 360 degree approach, what Mandar has explained, which is giving dividends in the long term?
Yes, like Mandar said, I think even ours is more a 360 degree approach, where there's no investing, there's no money transfer. It's more technical driven on how we can improve our players and our youth system. Whether it's through technology or their know-how. So that's also been our approach, and it's really worked. Much better than, like Mandar said, clubs coming on and doing licensing deals without which does not add any value to to the club. This way you're adding value to the entire system, right from from the youth right up to the first team. So I think for us as well, it's worked really well, just to have a partnership.
Nice. Yeah, there are some questions on this, but I'll probably try to fill the agenda and then come back to these questions. Aditya, from a different perspective, how do you see the official club apps or the digital strategies being actually a channel for business development in the coming years?
So I think digital transformation has been on the cards for I think all clubs, and I think the pandemic has maybe advanced it 2-3 years for us, which is because most audiences are moving on to the digital platform. So it is imperative for us to move on to those apps. We as a club have already been looking at digital transformation in terms of CRM databases, collating all our fan base and all our touch points into one place, which would then help us know our fans. So once the fan, what they want, we can then provide them exactly that. It also I mean, in terms of reach, it will help us, reach out to a wider audience, and that's shown by, the moving the soccer schools onto online. Like Mandar said, it's not only, the local, population that benefits it. It could be people from, right, from the northeast or the north of India to the south of India. So it is imperative to move that way. Also, another interesting part is how we'll be able to integrate our sponsors into this digital transformation, because for them it would be adding value, and you'll be able to give them a clear ROI on what they are spending. So I think it's a very important part in any club's planning, and I'm sure every club is going to be looking at a digital transformation and using these apps to reach out, for fan engagement, for sponsors, etc.
Yes, Aditya, I think you're very clear in terms of like giving a proper ROI and linking the best stakeholders possible. One side the fans and of course your sponsors. Good luck to that in the future. Now to Ashish, you've been someone who have been providing end-to-end sports and sports tech consulting with right from entry strategy to business development to sustainability. Now, how do you see the scope of esports and fantasy sports in growing economies like our country, India? And can football clubs in India take advantage of this trend to benefit commercially?
Yeah, sure. I think esports and fantasy gaming, has been big globally even before the pandemic happened. And I think the pandemic has kind of hastened the process even in India. If you look at some of the numbers, I was looking, about $159 billion is the market today of online gaming, about 2.5 billion gamers worldwide. Now, when you look at esports, of course, it's a subset because we're talking about is digital gaming, but with a competitive landscape, broadcast, and spectators like every other sport. So it'll be a subset of online gaming, but it's still a very large phenomena. In India, I think some factors which are very much in favor of esports kind of obviously growing is one is like demographic, typically 18 to 25, like high volume gamers. We obviously have a large population there. If you look at our infrastructure in terms of Aditya, and I think everyone's talked about digital and infra, but that's happening because our communication infrastructure has obviously improved, and we have billions of people now using broadband or high data networks using mobile. So that is of course another factor. The other couple of kind of like in Asian Games, for example, 2018 esports already became a medal sport, and now it will obviously grow. And we think that the Olympics, if not 2024, then obviously 2028, esports will be one of the sports. So all these kind of keeps it aligned to the fact that esports can only grow in India, and so would fantasy. I think if you look at a company like MPL, we are trying to use the power of mobile. We already have 80 million plus gamers, who tried on our app. So that's a huge number. So I think it's only growing, and it's going to grow. When it comes to the football clubs and how they can use these, I think my co-panelists probably can articulate better, but let me give you my kind of 2 cents here. I think going back to what I started with in Delhi Dynamos, the challenge of fan engagement, community building. I think esports and fantasy can be a very, very good mechanism for fan engagement. The advantage of esports, of course, is that it can be done throughout the year. So even if off season, you can engage with your fans. You can have, and again, the gentlemen have talked about it. Your fans are no longer the ones who only come to the stadium. They are not only in your city, they're globally, right? So if you're a team from Kerala, you could target, Malayalis all over the world. And I think esports.
Kerala fans are everywhere, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. So I think, if you look at all those kind of benefits that esports can bring in, fantasy gaming as well, but by the very nature of fantasy gaming, you got to be, in season for the fantasy gaming to be working. With esports, you could be, through the year 24/7, 365. Now, when it comes to the football clubs, I think typically we've seen, in mature markets, they've gone through these kind of steps. You begin with kind of holding esports events, right? So you get your fans to come in, you play some games, you do events. The beauty of this is that you can actually micro segment your fans. What I mean is you can do an event for soccer moms, you can do an event for soccer dads, you can do for a certain age category, you can have activations, very simple. Your star players can play against. Some of this is already happening, but this is how you begin, and you kind of grow from here. You can, as a football club, have your own esports competitions where people would come in, and they would seriously practice and make teams and come in and play. And all this just helps in active engagement between the fans and the soccer clubs, which in turn, then helps the brands to kind of look at you to connect them with their audience, and obviously that increases your revenue. When you look at things like fantasy sports, you could even license out, your players or your the club, and all those things will only grow in India. And as things grow, then you can have your own esports team. You could start at an amateur level. You could be playing games against other clubs, other fan groups, etc., etc. And then obviously the top of the pyramid would be to have your own professional esports team. And perhaps Mukul is going to say, look at this guy, I already have so many teams to worry about, he's adding a esports team. But I think that professional level esports team is something which we see already in other markets, and I think that will happen also in India. So I think there's a lot of scope, esports and fantasy, which can be used to drive revenue and towards sustainability of the clubs.
Thanks, Ashish. Talking about the sports, I fondly remember our first conversation. I was connecting from Spain, from my previous club, SD Eibar. Yes. I remember it was the starting point of our conversation where we actually couldn't arrive at the 360 approach, which Mandar and Aditya touched upon. It's such pity on that. But however, talking about these sports, we are all traditional football fans and we work in football. When you talk about esports, there's a little threat when it comes to like maybe in 10 years, 20 years down the line, where could be our traditional football? I think, as you said, like the traditional football should find ways to complement and travel along with esports rather than seeing it as a threat. Brilliantly put, Ashish, and hopefully like the clubs here and across India and Asia can materialize esports into a good streaming business development like the ones in Europe and Americas. So we have a question from someone, but that is where I'm also coming up. The question is to Mukul. So there's a lot of talk about women's football, not just talk. Women's football is rapidly growing across the globe. So considering our demographics and gender ratio, do you feel women's football can be a game changer in India?
Women's football is surely big, and only thing is like we can take inspiration from the countries which are doing much better, which is UK, USA, and others, Japan particularly in Asia. What we can say is, according to me, gender ratio is not really a problem. If that's a problem, what we see back in Olympics will completely, negate your gender ratio in first place. And the kind of population that we have, I don't think that's an issue at all because you have a fairly good number. Coming back to popularity of the sport, as far as women is concerned, it is very big. Just to give you a small example, way back in 2007, we had basically conducted, I was working with another club at that point of time, we had done a small talent hunt kind of a thing, and we included women a little later, thinking that let's not keep it closed only for men, and let's open it up. This was proper. This is more for 15 to 18-year-old kids, for school boys and college kids, and it was something that we were doing as a talent hunt to look for our under 16 team and for our under 18 team for a Mumbai FC club, which was working for. And it was more of a late decision to include women. To my surprise, later we had very good participation for boys, of course. We touched upon almost 10,000 kids in that particular span of 1.5 months when we done that overall tournament that we did. But to our surprise, 10% of that was girls. And this was really big surprise for us because we were talking about 1,000 girls participating and taking part as teams. They had actually formed teams and they played. And you're talking about an age group of 15 to 18-year-olds. So it was a very good number that we thought. We thought we might get just a few, maybe 100 at a max. And we got 1,000 girls to participate. Now, this is 14 years back. I'm sure that this is actually snowballed and become a much larger number. So we are actually underestimating the engagement of women into football. It's just that we don't have enough platforms for them, therefore we don't see them so much. But otherwise, there is too much of, I think there's surely a good amount of traction. Coming back to Indian standing, I think we are doing fairly well compared to our men's team, of course. But having said that, there is good amount of scope that we can see. Whether it will become more popular commercially, I don't know that. We have a distance to travel. But it will of course happen. It is a matter of time, but it is we have a lot of distance to travel for that. But it is surely a big thing that we should invest into. And I'm glad to share that right now the women's national team is being hosted in Jamshedpur for their camp for next 6 months. And we're just trying to see whatever we can do best to support women's football, so to say. But having said that, coming back to your question, tremendous scope. We should do it. There is something that, it's about engaging more and more members into the sport. And this can only get better with women's football.
Thanks, Mukul. I'm pretty sure, like when we raise the opportunities for them, I'm pretty sure the engagement is going to be even more numbers, and it's only going to go in a better rapid pace than it is right now. Yes, pretty much it. And I just have a few questions from the listeners. So I'm just throwing it to the open forum. Please feel free to join in and chip in. So the first question is, in between cost cutting, performance and revenue challenges, how much women's football and youth football are present going ahead? So I'm trying to understand how can we actually balance, maybe we can consider just women's football. How can we balance the women's football amidst the issues of cost cutting, performance and revenue challenges in terms of investment from the clubs? Yeah, anybody can. It is.
Mandar, you're taking it? Or should I just take it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
So yeah. So see, as far as we are concerned, as far as Jamshedpur FC is concerned, typically we have been engaging in women's football and youth football. In fact, for us, Jamshedpur FC as a club was a forward integration. We always had an academy and a youth system, and we basically have done a forward integration. As far as women's football is concerned, last 3 years we have started a women's league in Jamshedpur, and we have got a very encouraging response. Last year it was shut, but we'll again revive it after things normalize. But since you don't participate in any commercial league per se, the cost is not so, it doesn't hurt you so much. So just keeping the engagement on doesn't really take too much to do. And we're doing it more from a point of view from engagement, and we do it and it's fairly successful. You have good traction, and we are just getting this additional number and additional people to reach out to. And more people, therefore, be with your club as fans as you go along. But it is helping us, and we will continue that.
Okay.
So that's it. Yeah.
Yes, someone else? Yeah, that's it, right? So it's nice to see that it is actually paying a lot of dividends in terms of the engagement perspective per se. And the next question is, in terms of the revenue models, we see a lot of club channels, right? And the European clubs do have a lot of club channels. How do you actually see the club channels and micro content at your clubs impactful in the coming days in terms of revenues? Is it a long-term strategy, or like do we need to wait for those things to happen?
Well, I can chip in this.
Please.
I think the revenue model in India compared to the revenue model in Europe, I think it's very different, because the European ecosystem in football has been there commercially also for a while now. The Indian ecosystem in football is just, in a way, maybe it's like since ISL started, I think there was, there's a possibility that a good revenue model can come in for clubs. But yeah, I mean, I feel that a major revenue model for any club in Europe is the TV rights, which definitely right now it is growing. I personally feel, I mean, I'm not in ISL, but what I read is that it is growing at a decent level. But I think in India, there are other revenue models, which I think majority of the clubs should have in their kitty to make it sustainable at a youth level, maybe not at a senior level, but at a youth level. And one of that has to be, according to me, definitely a pay and play model, which is a day academy. One has to be a residential setup. I think residential setup, yes, a majority of the clubs have, which is more of a CSR run initiative. From the development point also, which is good. But I think that if they also have a pay model as well, it adds that the working capital element cycle, which is important at a youth level for any club, so that you're able to make sustainable the whole youth development. So I think that revenue model is I mean, I feel, because if I talk about my club, it has been through that, and it has given me sustainability for now for a few years. And definitely, as the economy of the country will do well, there will be more bigger companies coming as sponsors, more bigger companies owning clubs. So their CSR budgets are huge, and that money would definitely help in terms of growing the revenue model for the smaller academies.
Mhm.
And I think I think in plus the jersey selling, unfortunately in India, even the Indian cricket team jersey hardly sells. So I think in that we are far away from getting a big merchandise sales revenue coming in. But yeah, I mean, I think our demographic is, I think, is a mix of European and Japanese model rather than one-sided. So it's I mean, you need to take money from the kids. The federation has its own limitations, so it's kind of a in the middle.
All right. Anybody want to touch upon like the paper model or the residential setup, which like for example Anuj is exploring? Do you want to touch upon at these clubs what you are trying?
Yeah, let me, I think the pay model obviously is important as well as the development, because, you every kid is not, obviously going to be the next big player. But I think from a health perspective, and access to any kind of sport, even if it's not football, is important. And the only way we as clubs can do it is by having a pay, model, which is, I think, going to work very well, and it's worked in most European countries as well. But I think it's important to see, what kind of models that you put out. It should work for your community, that you're working with.
All right. So, I mean, like it all started with the challenges. So we looked at the challenges pretty much during the pandemic. We have looked at some innovative solutions in terms of digital strategies to please the sponsors as well as other sources of revenue income. We've looked at some innovative ideas of relocations, and also to do with how we are managing the current youth. Talking about the youth, we emphasize the need for more league systems, along with a need for investment onto the youth system. And also we touched upon women's football and opportunities around it. Not to forget the technology aspect as well. We covered the esports, but also the opportunities which also lies along in the digital side of football. Thanks, panelists. It's been a brilliant day. And not to forget, India also won against the friendly against Nepal. So it's a brilliant day for Indian football as well. So thanks for joining. And I'm pretty sure everybody here will be taking the professional aspect of football clubs much forward. Thank you so much.